Hello to you, Minister. Thank you for taking the time to join us. I know you're in Toulouse. Talk about that in the fullness of time. Just want to go straight to the Middle East, though, if I may.
Yes.
The Defence Secretary has said that British forces played their part on Tuesday evening in regard to supporting Israel. Can you tell us more about what happened?
Well, it was the Royal Air Force Typhoons, and they weren't. They were there to sort of help suppress the violence, and it was important that we are, supporting Israel in this very damaging and very worrying escalation of violence that we are seeing. The Prime Minister has been on the phone with many leaders, as you would expect, as has the Foreign Secretary. We are doing everything we can to try and de-escalate the situation and try to make sure that those involved in the region are de-escalating and not taking us to the brink. Obviously, we support Israel in its right to defend itself against those attacks from Iran.
What did the typhoons do?
They were there to de-escalate. They weren't attacking.
So did they engage at all?
You would need to speak to the Defence Secretary, but my understanding is they were not engaged in that way, no.
How far should we go to support Israel?
Well, look, we need to support their right to defend themselves. Of course, we do. We have been calling in Lebanon and in Gaza for a ceasefire. As you know, we have been very vocal on that front. We are trying to get people out of Lebanon who are British nationals because the situation is very difficult. We heard President Biden talking overnight about Israel's right to defend itself, but proportionately, and we will support their right to do so, of course, as well.
But not to target nuclear facilities is what the President has said. Is that the view of the British government as well?
Well, look, it's not for me to say, but he was clear that there should be no attack of that level, that it should be proportionate. We would support their right to defend themselves within international law.
Well, you are representing the government this morning, so if I may put that question to you again, does Britain also agree with the United States that it would not support Israel targeting nuclear facilities within Iran?
I think we would call for proportionality in the same way that the President Biden has, and he has been talking to all the G7 countries. We are talking to them together as allies, and it's important we send that message. But it's a very difficult situation. Of course, we understand that after the attacks from Iran, Israel has a right to defend itself, but we want that to be proportionate, and we want to make sure we are doing all we can in our role through diplomacy to de-escalate.
Charter flights, tell me about them out of Lebanon.
So there was a charter flight yesterday. There'll be another one today. We are doing all we can to get people out of the country. We are urging people to leave. We have been for a very long time. We are trying to make sure everybody registers their presence so that we can communicate with them and we can make sure there are flights available. And we will continue to do that to get people out.
OK, will those charter flights continue until all the Brits that want to come home can come home?
Well, look, there is a lot of work going on making sure those flights are there. We had the flight yesterday. We'll have flights today, and there will be more.
OK, but any Brit that wants to get out of the country, the British government will do everything it can to make sure that that happens with the aid of these charter flights.
Of course, and people should be registering their presence and making contact. There are places people can go for support. I know that MPs across the country have been looking out and in some cases trying to help people access the right information, but the information is there. We need to get people out of the country. It's a very volatile, dangerous situation. We want there to be a ceasefire. We are doing all we can to deliver that, but in the meantime, we think people should leave.
OK, and that Dunkirk-style sea lift that we heard about over the last couple of weeks, that's still a possibility if necessary, is it?
I think that we will be looking at everything that we need to do. At the moment, the flights are taking place and there are still flights and they are still possible, so that will continue.
You're in Toulouse. Other than what you've already announced, What other plans do you have for investing in energy infrastructure?
So there's going to be a major investment announcement tomorrow that the government is going to be announcing. We are working as closely as we can with all of industry to make sure we capitalise on these huge opportunities of green energy in our country. That's why we lifted the ban on onshore wind. It's why we are changing the planning laws. It's why we're setting up Great British Energy. It's why we're setting up a sovereign wealth fund, the National Wealth Fund, to invest alongside the private sector in the energy and jobs of the future. These are good, well-paid jobs in energy, and we could have been producing far more of them under the previous government, but because they put this lockhold on investment into infrastructure, we didn't deliver the jobs we could have done. We could have had at least 10,000 more jobs just in some of the renewables that we haven't seen. So we are going as fast as we can to deliver those opportunities in the parts of the country as well that have seen deindustrialization and have seen lack of jobs over the years. We want to put those jobs back through onshore wind, floating offshore wind, nuclear, hydrogen, carbon capture, and all the other energies.
Was the Prime Minister right to pay back over £6,000 worth of gifts he received after entering office?
Well, look, he said we need to have a look at the principles that sit behind the ministerial code. We're re-looking at those, and in advance of those coming out, he has paid back some of the tickets that some of the payments that he had during his time as Prime Minister. And I think that was a thing that he is doing in advance of having the re-look at our principles and our code.
Why not the Arsenal tickets?
I think there's an issue of security there where he can't sit in the normal stands, so he has to sit elsewhere. That's security. But look, he's wanting us to have a new set of principles on gifts and hospitality, showing leadership on that. It's the right thing to do. And in advance of that, he's made some payments back for some of the entries in his register.
A stadium is a stadium is a stadium. So if he's paying back the money for Wembley, why is he not paying back the money for the Arsenal?
I don't know the details of it. All I can say is that he has made some payments back. He is looking again at the principles. That is the right thing to do. Nobody's suggesting anybody's broken any rules. It's not a question of that, but we are looking at those rules and saying, actually, do we need to change them in terms of gifts and hospitality?
Yeah. How do you feel about it?
I think it's good that we're looking at those rules. As I say, nobody's broken any rules that exist at the moment. It's something that nobody is suggesting. I think under the last government, the issue was always about transparency, people not declaring things, people not going by the rules. Everybody has gone by the rules. We're having a look again. And look, we're 12 weeks into this government. We're incredibly busy ending the doctors' strike, making sure we're setting up the industrial strategy.
Okay. We're not going down that route. How much damage do you think this has done to your party?
Well, I think we're a new government. We are always worried, and Keir's main item in the speech that he made at conference was the lack of trust people have in politicians. We need to do more to make sure people trust politicians, because politics can be a force for good. That is the whole driving value of what Keir Starmer is about, and that's what he's going to do in this government.
So you can acknowledge that all these freebies that have been floating about have damaged the trust in Keir Starmer?
Well, I think he is doing the right thing, looking at those principles, looking at it in terms of hospitality. He is absolutely clear that he wants trust in politics.
Can you answer my question?
I am answering the question.
No,
he wants to build trust in politics.
I'm asking about the damage in trust to Keir Starmer's reputation for accepting many £1,000s worth of freebies.
I think clearly this has been a big story in the news. It's clearly been something that we are addressing, the Prime Minister is addressing. He wants to put trust back in politics. He wants to respond to people. He wants to build a country that everyone can prosper in, and that's what he's doing. He will do the right thing, as always. He has not broken any rules. He is looking again at the principles around gifts and hospitality. That's the right thing to do.
You have to accept that it has damaged his reputation. His popularity is as low now as when Rishi Sunak called the election. Has he had to do this to try to re-establish trust in his brand?
No, look, he is not going to be worrying about popularity. He hasn't gone into politics to do that. But he is he is really clear that we need to try and rebuild trust in politicians and in politics, because politics can be a force for good.
So do you
And if
acknowledge that
people
there
believe
wasn't
that it
trust
is,
there?
we're in trouble. So we are going to govern in the way that we said we were, which is with integrity and honesty, and drive up the economy and improve people's lives and make sure we're responding to what the public are saying, and make sure we're listening to the public. And I think looking at those principles is the right thing to do. And we will do that, and we will publish them soon.
Okay, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning.